When we think of John Coltrane, we usually jump to the harmonic minefield of giant steps or the spiritual heights of a love supreme. But if you want to see how he actually built that language, you have to look at his 12-bar blues. Now, did you know that over his career, Train recorded around 180 blues tracks? The 12-bar blues was his laboratory. So what I am going to show you today is how Coltrane structured specific melodic and rhythm ideas into a cohesive solo. To do that, we are going to analyze one of his most important blues solos from his late period, that is 1962 through 1964. And I am referring to his solo on Take the Coltrane, recorded with Duke Ellington about 5 years before he passed. Here we will find 7 motivic types that Coltrane used to tell a unified story. And you can think of them as characters in a story. And just like any great story, he introduces his characters early, develops them as the plot unfolds, and then brings the main ones back together at the end for a grand finale. I'm Richie Zellen, and regardless of what instrument you play, if you want to understand how one of the greatest improvisers in jazz actually built a solo, stick with me because I promise that after this lesson, you will listen to Coltrane from an entirely new perspective. And the analysis we are working from today comes from a dissertation by a fantastic saxophone player, Lucas Gabrick, who went through Coltrane's blues recordings and identified these 7 motivic types. So this is not just my take on it. Now, before we get into the analysis, I want you to listen to the first 4 choruses of the solo as played by Coltrane. And I want to add that in order to better follow along and practice everything we are about to cover, this lesson's download features a transcription of this solo in standard notation and tab. And I will tell you more about it later. If you're wondering what Coltrane did here, especially in his late period, well, he was thinking in terms of motives, short recognizable music cells that he could transform, repeat, and develop across an entire solo. So next we are going to identify 7 distinct motivic types found in this solo. Motive A, the rhythmic nucleus. The first motive is not really about notes at all. It's about rhythm, specifically a short rhythmic cell, 2 eighth notes followed by a quarter note. Coltrane plants it in the very first chorus, measures 1 through 4, and then returns to it later. It actually appears in 8 of the 11 choruses, so we could say it is one of the main characters in this story. And by the way, let me add that here, this is also functioning as the call in a classic blues call and answer. Listen as I play it. Now, notice how the same motive continues across the next 4 measures. Here it is functioning as the answer. Next we have motive B, the 4-note scalar fragment. Motive B is a short, energetic scalar climb. Here you find it in measure 9 and in the second half of measure 10. And we are going to find that this scalar fragment is always a subcomponent of a larger phrase. But before you hear it in context, I want to define a few more. Okay, motive C, the 1, 2, 3, 5 tetrachord. And this is probably the most famous device in Coltrane's toolkit. He used it constantly throughout Giant Steps, Countdown, and many other solos. Here we find it at the beginning of measure 10. It consists of taking 4 notes, the root, the second, the third, and the fifth of a scale. 1, 2, 3, 5. You can also think of it as a major triad with an added 2. Across his playing in general, Coltrane drew on all 24 permutations of those 4 notes, which is what kept the phrase sounding constantly fresh every time it appeared. And by the way, I'm including all 24 of them in the lesson download. So next, let me introduce the 4th Motivic type, and then we'll hear how he uses these 3 together. Motive D. This is the tonic triad in second inversion. Here it is at the beginning of measure 29. This creates an angular wide interval quality while implying the harmony. And when it comes to motive development, this is one of Coltrane's most recognizable stock devices. Now I want to show you how Train uses a triad in second inversion immediately after the 2 previous motives. So here we see measures 9 through 11 featuring motives B, C, and D. This is what is called a motivic network, and Coltrane's solos are full of them. Let me play this passage for you. In the second chorus, we find that Coltrane plays these same 3 motives again. And this is in measure 22 and 23, which again is over the final 5-4-1 progression of a traditional blues. You can see the 1, 2, 3, 5 tetrachord in the first half of the second measure, followed by the scalar fragment. And in the third measure, we have the triad in second inversion, followed again by another 1, 2, 3, 5 tetrachord. Are you starting to see how Train uses these motives as building blocks? Listen. Now, he doesn't always play these 3 motives together each time. They are also scattered individually throughout the solo. But before I give you some more examples, let me introduce you to some of the other motivic types. Okay, here we have motive E, the compound motive. Where motives A through D are shorter cells, motif E is a compound motive, a longer phrase built from embedded submotifs. And here you are seeing it in measures 13 and 14. Notice that it begins with the 1, 2, 3, 5 tetrachord in retrograde. Then it is followed by a bebop scale fragment. In this context, this would be considered a second submotive. And the third submotive it concludes with is a 3-note stepwise line that resolves to the tonic. And here is an additional piece of notation where you can see that Train plays this line almost identically on measures 61 and 62. Listen. Next we have motif F, the rhythmic phrase ender. A dotted quarter note followed by 3/8 notes used like a musical period at the end of a sentence. Coltrane doesn't necessarily play it with the same pitches twice, so it's defined by rhythm, not pitch content. And you'll find it all over the place. Here it is on measure 28. Listen. Now let's listen to Train's rhythmic phrase ender again on measure 40. Also, be sure to notice the triad in second inversion again in the first measure. He then ends another phrase with it just a couple of measures later. And occasionally he'll append an extra note to the rhythmic phrase ender. Listen to the end of this phrase in the second chorus. And finally we have motive G, the subdominant marker. Now this is pretty interesting. Motive G is a specific 5-note pattern: D, F, G, C, and B flat. And Coltrane uses it almost exclusively to mark the 4/7 or subdominant chord. And here it is over the second measure of his third chorus. And here it is once again over the second measure of his fourth chorus, only that played in a higher register. Also notice motive D in the first measure. Remember the triad in second inversion? And of course on the fourth measure, we have Trane's rhythmic phrase ender. There are a total of 13 choruses in this solo. I've just covered where these motifs appear throughout the first 4 choruses. Otherwise, this lesson would take hours. So the point I want to get across is that these are not just 7 separate ideas that Coltrane happened to use. Together, they function as a system to develop a musical story. That said, the best is yet to come. So next I want to play you Coltrane's final chorus, where he brings the main characters back for their curtain call. You know that feeling when you finish a great book and the author brings everything full circle in the last few pages? And suddenly every earlier detail takes on a new meaning? Well, that is exactly what happens here. But before we get to that, I want to tell you about the study package I put together for this lesson. It includes a PDF with the 5 choruses of Coltrane's solo on Take the Coltrane in standard notation and tab. All 7 Motivic types are explained as well as labeled and marked on the score. It also includes a PDF with the 24 permutations of the 1, 2, 3, 5 tetrachord. Also an MP3 of the solo and band in a box and MIDI files that you can import into Guitar Pro, MuseScore, or any notation and playback application you use. And you can download the entire package for a nominal contribution to support the channel at jazzguitar.richiezeland.com/premium. And I will put a link in the description below. All right, now let's hear how Coltrane ends the story. This is his final chorus. So see if you can identify the main characters coming back for their curtain call. And that is what it sounds like when a jazz improviser thinks like a storyteller. For those of you still with me, I truly hope you have enjoyed this lesson and learned something new. I have a passion for this stuff and love teaching it, but often, from what I see in other channels, I wonder if anyone is even remotely interested in this stuff. So if you appreciate it, please be sure to like and comment. And if you have not done so yet, subscribe. I'm Richie Zeland, and I look forward to sharing another info-filled lesson real soon with you. Until we meet again, you know the drill. Practice, practice, practice. Take a break, rinse, and repeat. Shalom. May peace be with you.